Yes, the Steve Yabsley Show. Thank you again for your company on this Monday, the 16th of November. Delighted to say my guest of the day, Suzanne Rolt, joins me. Hello, Suzanne.
Hi, hello.
Thank you so much for coming in. Now, Suzanne is the director and chief executive, I think, of St George's. God,
very grand, very grand.
Well, they should give you double salary for that.
Yeah.
And for those that don't know, St George's is a fabulous concert hall on Brandon Hill in Bristol, and it plays host to marvellous concerts all through the year. It's known for its super acoustics. Yes. And we'll hear about it in a minute, and also what's coming up in the exciting future.
Oh, yes.
But let's find out a bit about you, first of all. Where are you from originally? Where were you born?
South Wales girl. So
right.
I was brought up just outside Bridgend.
Oh, I love South Wales. I think it's underrated.
It's beautiful. I live quite near the beach, and fantastic beaches in South Wales. Well, you don't need to go to Cornwall. Go to South Wales.
No, well, I used to go over to the ferry at Fishguard often, which I know is further afield. But the whole coastline around there, people wouldn't normally go to, and it's gorgeous.
It's absolutely gorgeous. And here's a top tip, look, on a Monday morning.
I'll write it down.
A lot of people go from Bristol, they go all the way down to the Gower. But actually, you don't need to go that far. If you go to beaches like Southern Down, Ogmore by Sea, you still have the big crashing waves, great for bodyboarding and surfing.
And you save on petrol.
There you go.
Now, you studied music at the University College in Cardiff, although I understand your parents weren't musical. Your nan had a piano, didn't she?
That's right. How do you know? Where have you dredged that up from? Yes,
somewhere.
She did. My nanny had a piano, and she used to go and make me practice, and I wasn't allowed out of the front room, the parlour as they used to call it, until I'd actually done all my practice, and then I was allowed out and I could have something to eat, which sounds really mean, but she wasn't. She was just trying to gently encourage me.
Did it turn you against the instrument? I've got a daughter and we make her practice, and sometimes she's not in the mood for the practice.
Yeah, I gave up piano actually when I was 11, which seems an early age to give it up, but I'd started when I was 8, and by 11 I was just burnt out basically.
So when you went and studied music at University College in Cardiff, what were you majoring on then? What was your centre of your focus?
Well, it was cello then, was the instrument, but actually I did, most of my work was on the written side, so I liked learning about the history of music and writing about it.
I do like the cello. It's such a lovely instrument. They say it's the instrument that can most closely replicate the human voice.
Yes, it's very very plaintive and very emotional. So, and when you see cellists as well, they really put themselves into performances. It draws that out from them. So,
yeah. And when you have a cello on a pop tune, it just adds a little bit of extra special to it.
Bit of depth.
That's exactly the word. Now, your career, you worked for the Musicians Benevolent Fund. Well, actually, we should mention, first of all, Welsh National Opera. You worked for them for a time.
There we go, the Welsh connection again.
Yeah.
So I started with Welsh National Opera and then up to London for 3 or 4 years, working for the country's biggest charity looking after musicians in need. So,
who are these musicians in need then? Why are they in need?
Well, they're people, they're artists. They may have fallen on hard times. They may have had an accident. They could be a singer who's had problems with their voice. You know, a voice can be very, very a delicate thing. And if you put all your life into being a musician and then you find that instrument that you rely on for your livelihood doesn't work anymore, then someone needs to step in and help. And that's what the Musicians Benevolent Fund did.
Well, I know that was quite serious, but when I used to be in bands years ago, everybody I knew that was a musician was in need of something. I mean, they were all quite poor.
That may be a different thing.
I think they were emotionally needy as much as anything.
Well, we're all emotionally needed, yeah.
Well, you managed an annual festival of music in London, a fundraiser for that. What sort of things did you organise?
Well, that was really exciting because it came around once a year, and what we do is every year we would move to a different location. So one year it would be the Royal Albert Hall, then the Barbican, then the South Bank, and we'd start with a service in the morning. We'd commission new music to be played at, say, Westminster Abbey. Then we'd have a lunch and we'd have a speaker come in and talk about what was happening, what was important in the arts world at the time. And then this great royal concert in the evening, and it would be a member of royalty would come along, so it's quite swanky, but it raised lots of money again for the charity.
And were you able to pull favours and get top stars to appear at the concerts?
We were. We had Nigel Kennedy one year, so that was a good year.
Lovely.
And lots of the big orchestras as well. They were the beneficiaries, if you like, some of the players from those orchestras. So every year they were really, really keen to come along, play, and then there'd be collections afterwards.
I should imagine there's an awful lot of musicians who play in concert orchestras and travel and tour an awful lot, but don't build up much money.
It's a really, really hard life, and I think that when you think about all the years of practice, these are really talented people. They're often very talented, not just in music, but in other areas as well. But actually the salaries they earn aren't that great. And as I say, you can be vulnerable, if you have problems with your hands, say if you're a string player or your voice. then there's not a lot to back you up, really.
Yeah, and it's a bit rootless, really, because you're travelling around so much often, aren't you?
It's a really hard life. I mean, I see these musicians, top soloists, the creme de la creme of the world's artists. They come into St George's. They're lovely people, but, they just live on the road, if you like. And, they'll arrive at a concert hall like St George's. They'll come in, they'll do about 3-4 hours practice. They give the concert, back to a hotel room, usually on their own. And then off they go the following morning, probably flying out to a European city. It sounds really glamorous, but actually to have a family life around that and any kind of meaningful life is quite tough. You give yourself to music.
Now, I see that you're currently writing a novel about Syria. I don't know how you've progressed on that. What stage are you at the moment?
Well, I've written a lot, thousands and thousands of words, but it's a book that, with everything that's happening at the moment, just feels as if it has no end at the moment. So I feel I could just keep on adding chapter and chapter.
Now, you started writing it, I understand, following a visit to Damascus before the uprising in 2011. Tell me about your trip there. Why did you go there?
Well, I just went there because I'd always wanted to go there, and it just seemed the most fantastic historic city. I was really excited about going to see all the places where St. Paul went and these wonderful fortresses and mosques. But as you say, I went there literally, it was a few months. I went in, I think it was in November, and in the March, that's when the uprising happened.
Was there a tension in the air at the time?
Well, there was. I had a peculiar visit. It was quite eventful because I lost my passport on the very first morning in Damascus, which is not a good thing to do, particularly when you have a kind of military regime.
How did you lose it?
Oh, I left my handbag. I was very stupid. I left my handbag in a taxi. I had 3 bags and I left the bag.
So it wasn't even stolen? It was complete incompetence on your part?
Absolutely. Look, I can only beat myself up for that. And I kind of hoped that someone would return it, and they didn't. And I just spent the entire duration of the holiday going from immigration office to police station to military outpost. And I really got to feel, and I actually encountered some of the tensions that were there.
Yeah, and I bet there's a lot of bureaucracy there, isn't there?
Bureaucracy, you would not believe. It's labyrinthine. I mean, it's absolutely incredible. I just went around with a little piece of paper and people kept stamping it. And when I had about 20 stamps, I thought, surely this is it. You must now give me a new passport and visa. But then they'd send you and they would say, go outside, find the man near the pomegranate juice cellar, and there'll be a little man standing there and ask him for a stamp and pay him. And you'd be thinking, this can't be real. Where's the big plush office where this happens as you'd have in this country? And it was like, no, go and find the little man around the corner by the pomegranate juice cellar. Gosh. It was crazy.
Did you lose any money from your handbag as well?
I lost all my money. I lost my passport. The problem was it was all means of identification, and it sounds naive, but you suddenly realise you have no status, because if you're in someone else's country without a passport, you're a illegal alien, as Sting used to say.
Were you fearful that you weren't going to get back?
I really was, no, genuinely, and I actually thought that they might deport me. I thought they might throw me into jail.
Oh.
So
were you on your own or were you with someone?
I was with a friend, but she became ill with salmonella. So she started by helping. We would go to all these places together, and then she took to a bed ill and was very sick.
It wasn't much of a holiday, really, was it?
Well, do you know, it wasn't. However, what I have to say is you really got under the skin of the country, and I met a lot of Syrians, and they were just so kind, unbelievably kind, and I'm still in touch with some of them on a daily basis.
In fact, you organised a fundraiser, didn't you?
I did last week, for Syria Relief, and it raised about £1,500.
Now, you're writing that book, which will eventually be published to mass acclaim. You've been a book judge for the Bristol Festival of Ideas. Did you have to read a lot of books for that?
Oh, I had to read 130 books. It was hard. It was hard.
Gosh.
Yeah, there were some good ones, but some very thick books on philosophy and law, and
Why do people publish those? You're married to the architect Tim Rolt. In fact, you designed your house, didn't you?
We did.
I read together. I mean, how much input was it? 50-50 or?
You wouldn't give me much of an input.
Well, I know if I was designing it with my partner, I'd have very little input.
Yeah. He wouldn't let me do anything. I wasn't even allowed to paint the walls at the end of the day because apparently I couldn't do it properly.
Is it true it's built around a cherry tree?
It is. So there was a cherry tree growing on the site. It was an old Girl Guides hall. So we decided to build the house. So we thought, well, we just cannot take down this tree. So we built the house in an L shape. and a little courtyard and a cherry tree. We were told at the time that it probably wouldn't survive, but actually 12 years on and it's still there and it's flourishing.
Oh, that's lovely.
Yeah.
OK, well, let's talk a bit about St George's then. As I mentioned, Chief Executive and Director. When did you join originally? Because you came with a different role, didn't you, initially?
Oh, yes. I came in the early 1990s, so I've worked there most of my working life.
You've gone up the ladder.
I started at the bottom, as they say, and gone up the ladder, and it's a good way to do it. You learn everything about the organisation, so when you finally get to the top, those giddy heights of Chief Exec, you know how everything else is done and what needs to be done, so it's good.
You do an awful lot. I see programme, the classical music programme, 200 events roughly each year, but you do the sort of more humdrum stuff. I saw you looking at a drainage survey recently as well.
You have to do everything, and it's amazing what you have to turn your hand to, because it's a venue and things go wrong. It's like your house at home. Things can happen. The electricity can suddenly cut out. You need to know what to do. I mean, I have absolutely fantastic staff, I have to say, at St George's, who are absolutely wedded to the job. But you need to be able to stay calm.
OK, well, let's put it on the map then. I'm sure there are a lot of people listening now because we broadcast all over Somerset, South Gloucester, as well as Bristol and Bath. Even people that live in Bristol who don't know where it is and don't know what it is.
Okay.
What is St George's?
OK, well, St George's is a concert hall, and it has a really good reputation in Bristol, but it has a good reputation internationally, and that's all to do with the phenomenal acoustics. So musicians love playing there because when they start playing, they sound fantastic, and they just enjoy the whole experience of being there.
And it's on the slopes of Brandon Hill in Bristol. It
is. So if I was given directions, I'd say find Bristol Cathedral, which is very hard to miss in the city centre. And then you go up Park Street, and the second turning on the left is Great George Street. And there on the right is this magnificent former Georgian church. Can't miss it. Great big columns, big flight of steps at the front. And it was built by the same architect as the British Museum. Can you believe that?
Wow.
We're kind of tiny in comparison, but the same illustrious architect.
Well, it was built in 1823, and it's a very imposing building.
It is.
There was a grommet at the bottom, wasn't there, a while ago?
I loved him. It was so grommet, and I really miss him. And I know he was bid for and bought by a company in Bristol, and if ever they get fed up with him, he always has a home on the steps of St George's. He was fantastic. Well,
what's nice about St George's is the wide range. It's not only classical, which is your bread and butter, but there's jazz, blues, folk, world music, spoken word, comedy, book talks, a real mixture of things. And I'm sure your average person wouldn't appreciate what takes place there.
I think they probably don't. I mean, it's this, you get this term about being a hidden gem, which I hate because I don't want to be a hidden gem. I want everyone to know about it. And we do get around 70,000 people a year come through the doors. But actually, as you say, with the programme extending and more festivals going on, then I think more people are finding their way there.
Well, let's talk then about the exciting Building a Sound Future project, which is apparently £5.5 million aspiration. What do you want to do?
Right, OK. Well, it's kind of got beyond the aspirational point at the moment because we've been working on it for 5 years. What we want to do is to build a 2-storey extension for the building. Why do we want to do that? Because all those people I told you about, the 70,000 people, all these wonderful events, we've become pot-bound. So we've got this fantastic hall, and that will hold around 600 people.
The bar is too small.
The bar is too small. There aren't enough loos for people. You can't kind of drift around. There are no extra spaces for when children come in from schools. And actually the artists, you see them on stage all looking wonderful in their black suits and everything. Actually, backstage, there's very little room, and they're queuing on the stairs with their instruments, and
And what you want to build is a glass pavilion, 2 stories high, with a workshop, performance space, education, gallery spaces as well.
Yeah.
And where's it going to go? What part of the building is it going to attach to?
OK, well, we're very lucky. St George is a former church, so it's in some terrace gardens. And out to the right, there are 3 gardens, and we're basically going to build on one of those 3 gardens on the right-hand side. So the extension will connect directly onto the building, so you'll be able to go straight into the hall from the top floor. It will mean that we'll have access for people with mobility problems and in wheelchairs, unaided access for the first time ever. There'll be a cafe downstairs, and that will be open for anyone who wants to come in. So if you're coming up to Brandon Hill in 2 years' time and you fancy a cup of coffee and something to eat, come into St George's. That'll be a public cafe.
You should sell nuts for squirrels.
I should. Everyone's welcome to come in. Well, maybe not the squirrels.
And there's going to be those improved backstage facilities as well, aren't there?
Great backstage facilities. And then the exciting thing is upstairs there'll be 2 rooms which will be open up together, and we'll be able to take about 140 people, and we can have workshops and talks and films and anything you want, really.
So what stage are we at then? The funding's in place, is it?
Well, most of the funding is in place. Having said that, we still need 1.8 million. We've got a few coals in the fire, as they say, and we have got some fundraising events. So I've just come from practicing the piano this morning for a fundraiser.
Yeah, I see you're appearing together with a colleague of yours, aren't you?
I am, with our wonderful chairman, Charles Wilde, and he's a great sport. And as I say, I gave up piano at 11, so I'm not sure how it's going to.
You should have gone for the cello, really, shouldn't you?
I should have gone for the cello, but it's called a musical Monroe, and it's about pushing yourself. So actually, I thought, well, pushing yourself on the cello wouldn't be the same, but actually with piano, it really is like running a marathon for me.
Yeah, that's on the 30th of November, I see.
Yeah.
OK, now there's also things that you're working on, including the project with Luke Jerram, which is a glass sculpture to go inside this new thing.
That's really exciting. That's our Apollo sculpture. And the idea is we have this 2-storey extension with a great double-height space at the front of it, above the cafe. And really, it's just always been crying out for a statement piece. So Luke Jerram, who did the slide and has worked all around the world, he came up with the idea of a glass sculpture. And the composer who lives in America, Philip Glass, he writes just beautiful music. And we took a little piece of piano music, and that is becoming the basis, the sound wave for that piece of solo piano music is then taken and recreated in glass. And you get this phenomenal glass sculpture made up of 100 glass circles. And we're going to be selling them, asking for donations towards them. So if people are feeling very wealthy, and each piece would cost £1,000, £5,000. But actually, you might be, say, belonging to a local choir or an orchestra, or you might want to get together with some friends and buy one. And the idea is that all the money raised, every penny of that, goes straight into the money we need, this 1.8 million.
You've got to be very careful that you don't get a classical performer singing a note which vibrates the glass and shatters it.
Yes, absolutely. That would not be good, would it?
OK. Now, if the plans come to fruition, when will the extension be built and when will it be open? OK.
Well, we're going to start digging in the grounds in April time next year. And then the concert hall will be open all the way through until May 2017, when we'll close for 4 or 5 months. And then in October 2017, so less than 2 years away, then we're going to have the grand unveiling of this fantastic new building.
Brilliant. We should also mention that the hall is favoured for recording as well, isn't it? Because of those wonderful acoustics. So many different acts have performed there over the years. I was looking at some of your personal favourites. I see you liked Bjork, the Brodsky Quartet. Now, the Brodsky Quartet are returning, aren't they?
They are. They're artists. We have a lot of artists who we've formed really close bonds with, and the Brodskys are one of them. They're incredibly versatile, so they can play classical string quartets. But then, as you say, they will get together with an artist like Björk or Elvis Costello or Jackie Duckworth, jazz, and they'll work with them. But they're coming back with Willard White. So Willard White, who's just this phenomenal singer with the deepest voice you can possibly imagine.
And he's doing Gershwin and Sinatra, I see.
He is. He's just dreamy.
We haven't really got time to give details of these, and people, I would say, should look at the website or call the venue. But some of the events coming up over the next few weeks, you've got Bristol Back Choir, Glassworks Choir, Bristol Ensemble, a jazz Christmas carol with Alan Barnes. That'll be fun, won't it?
Absolutely.
Matt Lucas is coming as part of the Slapstick Festival. In fact, you've got a lot of Slapstick Festival events happening, haven't you?
We've got a lot of comedians coming up, particularly at the beginning of the year. So I think Ken Dodd's going to be coming.
Oh, really?
Which is amazing.
God, first time there, I should imagine, for him.
Yeah, and then we've got Michael Crawford coming. I mean,
is he singing or talking?
I think he's going to be talking, but you never know, do you? Once people get on stage, you can't tell what they're going to do.
Blimey O'Reilly. And the spoken word, well, he's actually a singer, Henry Rollins, who used to be in Black Flag years ago. It's funny, if you look at footage of Black Flag, which older listeners might remember, they were a very anarchic American band who were frightening. And Henry Rollins was the scariest bloke you could ever believe. But these days, he tells stories, and I saw him some years ago at the university, and he was brilliant. And he's forged a new career, well, as a TV presenter, but also as a spoken word performer, and he's brilliant, isn't he?
Yeah, and it's just great when you get, say, 45 minutes or an hour with these people when they're talking. It's really something special because you really get to find out about them and the stories behind what you're seeing. So
and quite an intimate venue as well for something like that.
Well, it is. So you feel very close to them on stage. Physically, you feel quite close. You can hear everything, see everything. So it does mean that sometimes inspires people to open up a bit more than they might in, say, a larger venue.
Other things you've got coming up, Steeli Spanner playing, Eliza Carthy, of course she comes from a great family.
Yeah.
I've been sent a message by Dagmar, who works at St George's, is an old friend of mine. She mentions the Hun, Her, Tu throat singers.
Hun, Her, Tu.
The throat singers. Do you get many of those go through St George's?
Do you know, we don't, but they've been before. They're Mongolian musicians and they are absolutely stunning. If you really want to kind of, go to something you're never likely to hear again, come to Hanhurtu. It's probably a terrible pronunciation, but it's just really exciting as well. I sat up in the gallery and listened to them, and it just really is amazingly strong music.
I bet they get through a lot of strepsils. You've also got Wonderland coming up, haven't you? Tell me about that.
Yeah, well, it's the 150th anniversary of Alice in Wonderland, so lots of things happening all around the country, and this is a musical event, so there'll be readings from Alice's Adventures in Wonderland, but some composers have waived the fee to write new pieces inspired by Alice in Wonderland. So you're going to hear, I think it's around a dozen new pieces interspersed with the readings. And it's all in aid of a wonderful charity, which is about helping babies and young children with illnesses.
Now, you have quite a few lunchtime concerts. I see you've got a piano concert by Joseph Tong and the punk folk group Lynched, who I'm not familiar with.
Oh, well, do you know, I'm not either. So
more details on the website.
But they're popular in Laos as well, and they're an amazing group. And I heard those a few months ago in Bristol, and they're coming as well. Just a few tickets left for that. So.
Well, we've given you a flavour. I mean, it really is an eclectic mix. You get something for everyone at St George's. Yeah. It's on Brandon Hill in Bristol. As Suzanne was saying, if you go up Park Street in Bristol, which is a road, whether you live in Bristol or not, you'll know, turn left St George's Street.
That's right. Second left into Great George Street.
Great Shore Street.
Yeah.
And then you'll see it.
You can't miss it.
It's massive. And more details on the website, which is stgeorgesbristol.co.uk. It's going to be busy and a lovely atmosphere, I imagine, over the Christmas period anyway.
It is. We put our Christmas tree up on the 1st of December, so we don't want to waste any time. The mince pies come out in the bar and the mulled wine and fantastic festive music.
Lovely. Well, thank you for coming in today, Suzanne. Pleasure to see you.
And you too.
That's Suzanne Rolt, who's the Director and Chief Executive for St George's.